Jacob's Well, a popular swimming hole near Wimberley, will remain closed to swimmers for the foreseeable future.
Jacob's Well has always looked like an invitation. A perfect circle of blue cut into the limestone bed of Cypress Creek, 12 feet wide, glowing turquoise in the Texas sun. On a summer afternoon, it fills with laughing teenagers and sunburned families, everyone lining up to jump into water. So clear it barely looks real. What almost none of them know, what most locals prefer not to talk about, is that the pretty blue circle they're diving into is the mouth of one of the deadliest cave systems in North America. And this year, for the first time, a team of researchers sent a machine down into it instead of a person. What that machine found is still being argued about in diving forums, university labs, and small-town coffee shops around Wimberley. This is the story of that dive. Jacob's Well sits just outside Wimberley, fed by the Trinity Aquifer, one of the great hidden water systems of the American Southwest. The water holds a constant 68 degrees no matter the season, which is part why it draws crowds even in the punishing heat of a hill country July. But the well isn't a pond with a deep spot. It's the surface opening of a vertical shaft that plunges straight down through ancient rock, carved out over millions of years by slightly acidic groundwater eating through limestone one mineral grain at a time. For a swimmer, the well ends at around 30 feet, in a sunlit room where the light from the surface still reaches, and the water is the color of blue glass. That's as far as any sane visitor goes. Past that point, the cave keeps falling, through a series of chambers connected by passages so narrow that only trained, specially equipped cave divers even attempt them, and even then, not all of them come back. Local dive shops don't advertise this side of the well. They don't have to. Reputation travels on its own, and Jacob's Well's reputation is grim. Over the decades, the number of divers who have entered the deeper chambers and never resurfaced has climbed into the double digits. Some of the passages are so tight and rock so unstable that recovery teams have simply had to leave remains where they are, sealed under tons of shifting gravel that no amount of digging can hold back. It's the kind of place that develops its own folklore. Locals talk about currents that seem to tug at swimmers from below, about a presence some divers report right before they lose their nerve and turn back. Geologists roll their eyes at that kind of talk, right up until they see what waits in the dark. Earlier this year, a small team of hydrogeologists and cave mapping specialists arranged a project that had never been attempted at Jacob's Well, a full remote survey of the lower chambers using an underwater drone, rather than human divers. The reasoning was simple. Too many people had died trying to map this cave by hand. A machine, they argued, could go where a person couldn't risk going again, squeezing to the tightest sections, hovering in the most unstable galleries, recording everything without needing to breathe, without needing to panic, without needing to be rescued. The drone they used, a compact, remotely operated vehicle nicknamed Compass by the crew, was built for exactly this kind of punishing, claustrophobic environment. Rated for extreme depth pressure, wrapped in a reinforced yellow shell, and fitted with dual high-resolution cameras, sonar imaging, and a set of LED arrays bright enough to cut through total blackness, Compass was tethered to a control van parked on a limestone bank by several hundred feet of armored fiber optic cable. Two technicians sat inside the van watching a wall of monitors while a geologist called out coordinates and a hydrologist logged water chemistry readings in real time. The first ascent, on a cool, overcast morning, felt almost peaceful. The drone dropped to the sunlit upper chamber where the swimmers usually stop, its cameras catching the eerie, luminous quality of light filtering down from the surface. Pale gold shafts scattering across pockmarked limestone, tiny minnows flickering at the edge of the frame. It was, by every account from the crew, beautiful, for about 90 seconds. Then Compass reached the true edge of the mapped cave system, and the light disappeared. Below the first chamber, the well narrows sharply, twisting downward through a passage divers have nicknamed the funnel for the way it seems to squeeze everything smaller and smaller the deeper it goes. The drone's pilot slowed the descent to a crawl here, watching the sonar readout for any sign of collapse or obstruction. Every foot of forward progress was logged, photographed, cross-referenced against decades-old hand-drawn survey maps made by divers who had barely made it back out alive. At roughly 90 feet down, the drone entered a chamber that hadn't been fully surveyed since the 1980s. The walls here were smoother, almost sculpted, curving in odd, deliberate-looking patterns that the geologists on the team would later describe as unusually organized for a purely erosional cave, a small detail, but one that stuck with the crew. Sonar readings showed the chamber opening into at least 2 additional passages, branching off in directions the old maps didn't account for. Whatever had been drawn decades earlier, it seemed, was already out of date. The cave had kept moving. It was in a third chamber, close to 120 feet below the surface, that the mission stopped being routine. The drone's forward camera caught a glint, something reflective, out of place among the dull gray limestone and pale sediment. The pilot eased compass closer, adjusting the LED array to cut the glare. What resolved on the monitor was a corroded metal cylinder, half buried in silt, unmistakably man-made. An old air tank, decades out of date by its fittings, wedged upright between 2 slabs of rock, as if something had shoved it there and left it standing. The van went quiet. Nobody said anything for almost a full minute, according to crew's own account afterward. Then the geologist, watching the screen without blinking, said quietly, "Keep going, slowly." They didn't find a body that day. What they found, a few yards past the tank, was something the crew has been far more reluctant to describe in detail, an area of the chamber floor where the sediment pattern didn't match anything they'd cataloged elsewhere in the cave. Sonar showed a shallow depression, almost regular in shape, roughly the size and outline of a person, half covered by loose gravel that appeared to have shifted recently. No bones were visible on camera. No definitive human. Remains were confirmed, but the shape was enough. The team ended the day's dive early, retrieved the drone, and spent that evening reviewing the footage frame by frame, instead of celebrating what should have been a landmark discovery. Jacob's well has never given up its dead easily. That much has been true for as long as people have been diving it. Search and recovery teams who have gone in after missing divers over the years describe conditions that sound less like cave diving and more like being buried alive on a timer. Zero visibility the instant a fin brushes the silt, gravel that behaves like liquid and can bury a person in seconds, passages so narrow a diver has to remove their air tank and push it ahead of them just to fit through. More than one rescue diver over the decades has needed rescuing themselves. There are stories, some documented, some passed diver to diver like folklore, of experienced professionals who went in to recover a body and came within minutes of becoming one. Pinned by collapsing gravel, out of air, saved only by a partner's steady hand finding in the blackness at the last possible second. Even the survivors of those close calls often describe something harder to put into words than the physical danger, a sense, deep in the 3rd or 4th chamber, of being watched, of the cave paying attention. Scientists are quick to point to nitrogen narcosis, oxygen stress, or simple panic as a likely explanation. Divers who've actually felt it are less quick to dismiss it. What the drone team found doesn't resolve that older mystery so much as add a new layer to it. If the depression in the sediment is what some of the crew privately suspect it is, it would mean the cave has been quietly rearranging itself around whatever it's holding for years, maybe decades, without anyone ever knowing. No human diver could safely reach that chamber confirmed in person. That's precisely why the drone was sent in the first place. And that's the uncomfortable irony sitting at the center of the story. The very danger that has always kept Jacob's Well's secret safe is the same danger now standing between science and an answer. There's a bigger picture here, too, one that has nothing to do with old tragedies and everything to do with what's still down there, alive and unmapped. Jacob's Well isn't an isolated pit. It's a doorway into the Trinity Aquifer, a vast underground water system stretching beneath much of central Texas, supplying drinking water to millions of people. The well's flow has been used for over a century as an early warning sign for the aquifer's overall health. When the well runs low or stops flowing entirely, as it has during past droughts, it tells hydrologists something serious is happening underground long before it shows up anywhere else. The drone sonar picked up something else worth noting on that same expedition. Indications of open space extending beyond the map chambers, voids the equipment couldn't fully resolve at maximum range. It raises a genuinely open scientific question rather than a spooky one. How much of this cave system has never been surveyed at all, and what, if anything, has been living down there long enough to adapt to total darkness, crushing pressure, and near-freezing water temperature? Blind, cave-adapted species are well documented elsewhere in Texas's limestone aquifers. Pale salamanders, eyeless invertebrates, fish that have long since lost any need for color or sight. Nobody on the expedition claimed to have found anything like that at Jacob's Well, but nobody could rule out either. And for a team of scientists, we don't know yet is often the most unsettling answer of all. As of this writing, the research team has not sent the drone back down for a follow-up dive. Officially, that's a matter of funding and scheduling. Deep cave mapping equipment isn't cheap, and neither is the specialized crew required to operate it safely. Unofficially, more than one member of the expedition has admitted, in interviews since, that there's a reluctance to go back in a hurry. Whatever they saw in that third chamber, hovering 90 feet under a swimming hole full of tourists on any given weekend, changed the way they talk about the place. Geologists who spent their careers describing limestone dissolution and aquifer recharge rates in dry, technical language have started using words like unsettling and wrong to describe 40 seconds of drone footage. Local authorities in Wimberley have not commented publicly on the possibility of human remains at the site, and no official recovery operation has been announced. The chamber in question sits well beyond the reach of any diver willing to attempt it safely, which means, for now, the cave keeps what it's holding. The swimming hole above stays open. Families still line up on the limestone ledges every summer weekend to jump into the cold, startlingly clear water, most of them with no idea that a robot recently hovered in the dark 100 feet beneath their feet and found something that made a room full of scientists go silent. Jacob's Well was never really a well. It's a mouth, one that has been swallowing light, and occasionally people, for longer than anyone alive can say for certain. The drone gave researchers their clearest look yet into what's down there. It didn't give them peace of mind. If anything, it did the opposite. It confirmed that the deepest parts of that cave are not empty, that the old stories locals have told for generations may have more to them than folklore, and that whatever else is waiting in those lightless chambers, it's still down there undisturbed, exactly where the cave has kept it hidden all along. Some places earn their reputation slowly, through decades of near misses and quiet warnings passed from one diver to the next. Jacob's Well spent nearly half a century building that kind of reputation, one disappearance at a time. What a small yellow drone found this year didn't create that reputation. It just confirmed, with cold, undeniable footage, that everyone who ever felt uneasy standing at the edge of that beautiful blue water might have been picking up on something real. The well is still there. The chamber is still unexplored beyond where compass turned back. And somewhere in the aquifer below Wimberley, Texas, water that has been moving through solid rock for millions of years keeps flowing past whatever the cave is still keeping for itself. If you like, I can also format this into a narration-ready shot list, or break it into timed segments for voiceover pacing.